Hi, I'm Deborah Atkinson, and you're watching Flipping 50 TV, the place to reset, tune up, and prepare for your second and better half with the vitality and the energy that you want. In every episode, I answer questions from women just like you about what they're struggling with most, and I share how to move, how to eat and when, and simple, safe, sane daily flips that you can make so you can get the most results in the least amount of time. And I'd love to hear from you. Send your question to flipping50tv.com. And if I choose your question for the show, I'm going to send you some juicy gifts I'll tell you a little bit more about later. But even if I don't choose your question, you'll get my Muscles in Minutes guide to toning up those hard to tone areas right away, just as my thanks for sending your question. So today's question comes from Catherine, who writes, how do nutrition requirements differ when training for an endurance event? She's 61 and she's been training for a triathlon or thinking about it for about a year and wonders if this also applies to any endurance sport like hiking, kayaking, cross-country skiing, as well as triathlon. First, I love that Catherine is 61 and starting something entirely new. And yet, tune in if you're thinking, I'm not a triathlete, this is not my jam. Stay tuned because cross-training is great for anybody, and all of the things I'm going to share with Catherine could apply for you too. So before we go too far, Catherine is trying a keto diet, and it's part of the reason she asks. So let's start by defining keto, because that's what Catherine's been doing and what prompted her question. And then we'll know, how does keto apply to exercise, endurance, and you? In today's Chalk Talk, we're going to talk about three pieces. We're going to talk about Minute Maid and how muscles in an athlete is made in the kitchen. And we're going to talk about muscles in minutes, how to spare muscle loss that can happen when you're doing a lot of endurance, triathlon, or any other kind of endurance exercise. And last, we're going to touch on best rest and how important that is to Catherine or to you if you're watching and you want to maintain your lean muscle tissue and get rid of fat. What is keto? There are a lot of diets flying around there, but let's define keto. Basically, it's meant to bring you into ketogenesis, where your body can burn fat for fuel. And here's how it works. It's a high fat, 60 to 80% fat, which is significantly higher than a lot of us were raised on living with. Plus it's very low carb and moderate levels of protein. So here's what happens and the theory behind it. We're trying to get your body to go from its preference to burning carbohydrates and the way carbohydrates are stored in your muscle to using fat. We want to shift it so that if you're a triathlete or anybody who's doing endurance activity, your body burns fat and you don't have to worry so much about eating while you're literally on the run or on a bike or swimming. You've got plenty of fuel because most of us, let's face it, have plenty of fat. But here's the theory, it's not easy. And your body is just as lazy as most of the rest of us really would be left to our own devices. So it's easy for your body to use carbohydrates for fuel, hard for your body to use fat. It's definitely possible to shift to becoming more of a fat burner than a sugar burner or a carbohydrate burner, but it takes a little time. So you want to start doing low-level activities because at low levels of activity, we burn the most fat for fuel. In fact, right now, I'm burning about 99% fat for fuel. How well is that working for all of us, right? So if low level of exercise burned the most fat, we'd all be skinny, right? So the problem is we burn it so slowly. So the key is to teach your body how to use fat for fuel when you're working at higher and higher intensities. That does take some time and it can be really uncomfortable to flip over. But Catherine's already got a good head start because she's been kind of thinking about this for a year. What I want to tell you though is any diet you're on, any restrictive diet, and keto is really restrictive, robs you of some micronutrients. So if you're not getting certain things in, you're not getting the micronutrients from those certain foods. So here's what I want you to keep in mind. Everything we do, from exercise, from keto, a keto diet, and Catherine's sake, to stress. Anybody got some stress out there? All of those things and more rob us or deplete daily micronutrients that we may be taking in from our diet or not. So just take a look at this. So exercise will deplete, and I'm not talking about endurance alone. If you go to Zumba 3 times a week, it still depletes some micronutrients. Good habits deplete micronutrients. They rob us of some A, B vitamins, C, magnesium, calcium, and plenty of others, but I'm gonna focus on these important ones, and here's why. As we get to a keto diet, if you're tempted and you're doing a higher fat, moderate protein, low carbohydrate diet yourself, even if it's not quote unquote keto, that also robs you of B vitamins, calcium, and magnesium. Now, let's talk about stress. Got stress? That robs us of A, B vitamins, calcium, and magnesium. Do you see the pattern here? So by the end of the day, we've lost significant amounts of B vitamins, of calcium and magnesium across the board. So you want to be taking a little quiz of the same type to look at what am I taking in, what am I missing, and what are my daily activities that might be depleting me. Catherine and I are going to head to the kitchen to talk a little bit more about supplements that you might want to look at and what are high quality supplements that you might want to be taking. In Muscles in Minutes, we're going to go through a little routine and then we'll show her how to get some bed rest. Let's head into the kitchen. Okay, Catherine, in this segment of Minute Maid, we're going to cover how do we replace or replenish the micronutrients that we either might be missing or depleting with our activities of endurance exercise and the keto diet. So no matter what, if you're listening at home and you're eating a certain way, invariably you're cutting out certain foods from your diet, or you just don't have enough time and access to get them every day. So really high quality multivitamin is important, but it is not the 1 time a day vitamin of your past. So I've got a couple of options here. These two are both built smarter, and that's what you want too. So these are multivitamins that are taken, say, in the morning and in the evening. You can also find some that need to be taken 4 times a day to be your 1 daily dose. Now, I know myself well enough to know I would miss the 2nd and the 3rd because I'm not going to carry them with me in my purse and remember to take them. So I stick with a multivitamin that has to be taken AM and PM. And that's not the same as taking one and cutting it in half. They've actually been built so that the micronutrients in the pills don't compete with each other. And actually, this is a pill and this is a powder. So if you'd prefer to stir it up into a liquid and drink it with your first glass of water in the morning, that's an option. And I'll link to these in the show notes. And the other things you want to make sure that you're taking is, I'm a huge fan of omega-3s. Even if you love fatty fish, including omega-3s on a daily basis helps you reduce your inflammation. And that's really important, whether you have achy joints or arthritis or you're training a lot. So I bump this up and take more than what's on the bottle myself. So think about your own needs and what you need to do. And I take mine with D so that I don't have to take another form of that supplement because it's also one that's much needed. Then I take magnesium, and there are 3 different types of magnesium. I'm gonna link to that in the show notes so you know exactly which one you need to take. And then vitamin C is also great for helping reduce inflammation, and remember, it's one of those things that kept coming up as something we deplete. So think about what you need and what you need to take in. Now let's come back to the real food, the fun stuff. When you're going on a hike, you're doing a big day of 18 or 36 holes of golf and you're walking, you're gardening all day, or you're kayaking all day. Those are long distance, long endurance kinds of activities, but they're low intensity. So remember that you're gonna burn fat. So the type of fuel best for that to help you burn more fat while you're doing it is actually fat. So you're gonna stick with either, for short duration activities, eating less. So just listen to your hunger. But when you are hungry, you're gonna do nuts and seeds. I love raw cashews. I love sunflower seeds. And a little salt, if you're gonna be out there and sweating, is probably okay. And pumpkin seeds are also great and help reduce inflammation. But if you're doing higher intensity, like you, Catherine, before you go for a run or bike or a swim, your longer endurance activity is actually higher intensity. Your body, remember, has a preference for carbohydrates. So even if you're trying to lose fat and gain your lean, you want to let the body start the fire for your exercise with some carbohydrates. So some great ways to do it. One of my favorites is some heartier rice cakes, no cardboard, okay? So these have about 70 calories each. They're from Lundberg and they're my love. And then I'll put sun butter on them, no sugar, and if you need something, a few slices of banana can sweeten it up. Or for on the go, put that in your pocket. I like a low sugar, a little bit of protein, and a little bit of fat, kind of a bar. Very natural, no extra junk. So if you're reading the ingredients and you can't pronounce it, put it back. You're looking for the fewest ingredients, the most natural. And these are for on the go. So if you've got something stored in your desk at work, these are not your ideal because these are great for exercise, but not great for when you're at rest. You want to go for those higher fat foods. Now, Catherine, you didn't ask me specifically about this, but helping you keep that lean muscle is really important. We're going to talk about some exercise ways to do that during your long endurance training too. But you can also get some of those micronutrients back in you through real food. Choosing a protein type, a clean type of a protein powder, whether it's plant-based because you're vegan or prefer it, or you're doing a paleo inspired at least. It's just dairy-free, soy-free, and truly clean, but animal protein. Or if you know you tolerate dairy, pre and post exercise, whey protein can be amazing. You can add a little fiber, and if you're doing keto, you may actually need a little bit of fiber because it can lead to some constipation. We don't need to talk about that right now. But we're gonna look at things like an avocado, cinnamon, adding Aussie or camu powder, coconut, gluten-free oats, spinach, and berries or cherries. Every single one of those offers anti-inflammation and oxidants that's going to help your training and help your health, even if you're not training. So I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. Okay, Catherine, so really important. I know you're asking about endurance and nutrition, but part of that is keeping the nutrition up to keep your lean muscle tissue up. So even though you're doing a lot of exercise, you're doing a lot of exercise on a bike and in the pool, which can also affect your bone density. So let's talk about the whole package because you're exercising to be healthier overall. So we don't want what you're doing temporarily to affect you negatively long term. So I want you to make sure that you're flipping a little bit of that endurance exercise for some strength training exercise. And you're gonna end up getting to the starting line a little fresher. And it's always better to show up a little undertrained versus overtrained. And it's always a fine line of which am I doing? So strength training is a way to grab power without breaking down muscles. But I wanna show you how to use 3 exercises. You're gonna use a squat, some kind of a bent over row or bent arm pullover for your back, and a chest press. in a way that you reach fatigue with a slightly heavier weight or a little bit of power. I'm going to show you what fatigue looks like, and anybody listening at home needs to watch this too. So just finishing with 10 or 15 repetitions does not mean that you necessarily reached fatigue. So watch what happens when I lift this kettlebell as my chest press exercise to fatigue. What I'm going to do here is go a little slow, power up, but come slow on the way down. And that will mean that you can take a little lighter weight and still make it help you reach fatigue without having to do any more than 30. You never want to do that many. So I'll give you a little disclaimer right here. I cannot count and cue at the same time, but that's about 5. And exhale as you come up. So while you're doing a chest press, you can actually do this on the floor like I am. You could use a bench or you could use a ball. But if you're trying to use a heavy weight, I would recommend not using a ball because you're gonna use a lot of muscles on a ball. And you may think, okay, that sounds great. But the ones you truly wanna fatigue to help you gain metabolism won't actually get the fatigue they need because everything else is a package deal. So when you're wanting to focus on core or you're wanting to focus on a functional workout, using a ball can be a great idea. But when you really want to see metabolism change, you want to have a stable surface, the floor or a bench, better choice. Okay, so can you see that I'm beginning to struggle? Exhaling on the way up. We're probably not quite 20. Push up and easy and slow on the way down. This part, when you're pushing a weight up or lifting it, it's called concentric contraction. Lowering down called the eccentric, and there is a lot of work happening right there. And I can tell you that I am just about done. When you start to cheat, and you feel like you're gonna use something you shouldn't to help you do the exercise, that's what we're calling temporary fatigue. And or you get sloppy, and I'm just about there. So I'm gonna stop. That's true fatigue. So I want you to do that with all those major muscle groups, just 3. Chest press, a back exercise, and a leg exercise, all the way through your training, twice a week. And you'll be covered, not lose any muscle mass by the end of your training. Now let's stand up. I'm gonna show you 2 drills that you can do that are more functional the closer you get to the race day. Catherine, the closer you get to race day, the less you want to do that heavy weighted to fatigue, and the more you want to do some more functional workouts, very sport specific. So I'm going to give you 2 drills, and you could do these all the way through, but you're going to start dropping off that heavier, more power work because you're going to be doing more endurance training, and you don't want to overtrain. So the first one is just a lunge. So you get back into a runner's lunge, but you're also using those arms just the same way you use them when you run. So it can't all be endurance exercise. Got to do a little strength. So what I'm really doing here is pushing through the glute over here. As I come up to standing, squeeze and hold. Work on great form and work on getting those arms nice and fluid. And you're using your core while you're doing that. You're gonna work up to about 15 repetitions on either side. Second drill, you're gonna put your foot somewhere. Now, I'm gonna be careful and not put it through the window. And you wanna step out far enough that your weight is on your heel, not on the ball of your foot, so that you can go down and up and keep that. What we're looking for in running is a stable lower body and a mobile upper body. So here we go. And if you're trying this at home, whether you're a triathlete or not, we all need this. Spend a lot of time at a desk. When you're not riding the desk, I want you to try this one. So remember this, it can get backwards. When you're down, your arms are over the leg. And you're gonna do about 15 of those on both legs, and that's a set. Start with 1 set of each. You can work your way up to a 2nd set and a 3rd set. And that's it. Catherine, in this last segment, best rest. It's all about making sure that you are reaching your nutritional needs and recovering. And here's one way to tell. So it's really important to measure your resting heart rate first thing in the morning, and do that for 3 to 5 days in a row before you start your training. And then in the middle of your training and at the end of your training, you're gonna have a good benchmark for comparison's sake. But here's what you may find. If you can't get your heart rate elevated while you're exercising, or if your heart rate is too elevated in the morning when you wake up, say after a particularly hard workout or a hard week worth of workout, that's a sign that you're not recovering really well. And that's not just about training. So it's about your training. It's also about your sleep and how much time you actually spend putting your feet up, just like this, and how well your nutrition is meeting your nutritional needs. So all of that encompassing is recovery. But here's another way to check. So not just monitoring that heart rate, but monitoring what we call heart rate variability. So if you're really geeking, whether you're recovering or not, you can check on that. Very much like you check your heart rate by wearing a monitor. You put on a heart rate variability monitor and look at what's happening with your heart rate first thing in the morning. So once you wake up, you then put the heart rate monitor on and lay back down, just to settle your heart rate back in. When you're at horizontal, it's going to be at the lowest it is. So let's say, for instance, you have a heart rate of 60 beats per minute. Now, a lot of us would think, okay, that probably means you have 1 second between each of those beats, but not necessarily true. And heart rate variability, when it's maybe 0.8 between some beats and it's 1.2 between others, and 1 second between others, is actually ideal. That means you're really recovered. If you've got exactly the same increment of time between each beat, it may mean you're overtraining. So when you really want to take a look at not just what's going on with your heart rate and what your beats per minute is, but what's going on with heart rate variability, now you have a really good snapshot of how well you're recovering and meeting all of your needs, including nutritional ones. And Catherine, here's the flip of the day for you and for everybody else watching. It's never too late to learn new tricks. Catherine, thanks so much for sending your question. It was great, and I want to see a picture of the finish line. And now I'd really love to hear from you. Send me your question to flipping50tv.com. If I choose your question for the show, we're going to send you a full-size trio of products from Anne Marie Skincare. I'm going to give you access to my signature course, the After 50 Fitness Formula for Women, and the Bone Health Mini Course is tucked right in that. Plus, you'll get my book, You Still Got It, Girl, the After 50 Fitness Formula for Women course. Even if I can't choose your question for the show, and I can't choose everybody's, I'm going to send you my Muscles in Minutes guide for toning those hard to tone areas. And if you have cellulite, you're going to love it. Just as my thanks for sending your question. What are you waiting for? Head on over to flipping50tv.com and let's start flipping 50 together.